I'm Claudia Catania, and you're listening to Playing on Air. You are about to hear Happy Birthday, Mr. Abernathy by Lloyd Suh. It stars Len Cariou and Ken Leung. We are in a bedroom of a large home in St. Louis overlooking the Missouri River. It is autumn 2004. Mr. Abernathy sits in a wheelchair. He wears a tuxedo shirt and jacket, black tie, undershorts, shoes, socks, no pants. Albert sits on the bed, fully dressed in a matching tuxedo. He reads aloud from a newspaper.
Happy birthday!
William Andrew Abernathy of Silver Springs, Missouri, celebrates his 100th birthday today among the company of his family and friends. Mr. Abernathy, born in St. Louis in 1913, graduated with a degree in economics, blah, blah, blah. Although Mr. Abernathy was born at a time when the average life expectancy was 50 years,
True.
He joins 2 of his 7 brothers and sisters to live to advanced age.
Whoopee.
He currently resides among 5 generations, including his eldest daughter, Mrs. Rebecca Blanchard, age 77, and her daughter, Mrs. Mary Blanchard Chung, age 56, as well as his great-grandson, Kevin Chung, age 35, whose twin daughters, Esther Sue Jin Chung and Elizabeth Sue Mi Chung, will turn 11 this fall.
Okay, that's enough. My ears are gonna fall off.
Didn't think it'd be such a dispassionate account.
Think I'd be swayed by passion? That's exactly what I'm dreading. Sentimental hoo-ha.
In any case, we should really get out of here.
How'd you get this detail?
I volunteered.
Horse pucky. Which one are you, anyway?
I'm Albert.
Kitty's youngest?
Kitty's youngest.
What?
Kitty's youngest.
What?
Kitty's youngest.
Isn't that what I said?
Yes.
In any case, you all look the same to me.
Okay, then. Let's head out to the party now. What do you say, Pop?
Don't call me Pop.
I always call you Pop.
What do you call your Pop?
I call him Dad.
What did you call your grandpop?
I used to call him Gramps. Or Hada Baji.
Please, Albert, none of that Oriental crap, not today.
Fine by me, Pop. Now, can you, tell me where your pants are?
That girl, what's her name? Jo Mi or who, she's ironing them.
I'll take but a few minutes, right?
Well, she's got to clean them, too.
I see.
So they sent you here to rush me.
Just came in to tell you they're all here, all waiting.
They can start without me.
You're the guest of honor.
Then they can abide my damn wishes.
What are those, then?
Don't want a party.
Well, you're getting one.
That's what you think. I'm busting out of here. You can join me if you wish.
Yeah, you're gonna run away.
Damn right I am. And I'm not deterred by your calling me yella. Cowardly, I mean. Yella used to mean cowardly, not... Oh, hell.
I know what you meant. I don't get bent out of shape over things like that.
Anyhow, I broke out of a German POW camp. I can break out of here.
POW camp? Haven't heard that story.
What?
I said I didn't know you were in any POW camp.
Hell yeah, in the war. Me and a dozen other guys under the fence and out of high-speed chases got out of that sucker so much alive, we'd live to be 100.
I think that was a movie.
What?
What war was this?
WW2. What war do you think?
You were at Woolworth's in the 40s, Pop. You served 4 years Army, well before Pearl Harbor, never saw combat, and right now you're summating The Great Escape, Steve McQueen. We saw that movie together at Auntie Ting Ting's last Thanksgiving.
Well, either way, I got the memory in me like it was mine. That's just as good to an old codger. So, under the fence, I'm going.
There's no fence out there, Pop. Just a family clan of people who love you.
How did my family get so Oriental? I used to be an Irishman.
You're still an Irishman.
Not the way I used to be. Back in the day, if you were Irish all day. The Irish, the Italians, all the rest. I mean, somewhere along the line, we all became plain old white men.
And folks like me?
You didn't exist.
We existed, Pop, just not so much in Missouri.
Stayed in China where you belonged.
Well, that's more or less what happened. Yep. So let's just get your pants on and have a party.
All right, but before we go, one thing first.
Your pants.
In addition to my pants.
What is it?
Because you were about to say something to me, say something like, not China exactly, Pop. My people came from Korea. I know the difference between China and Korea. I listen to the wars on the radio. But since you're the one they sent in here to fetch me, you're the one I'm going to speak to on a certain subject. I have a confession to make.
Wait, you want an Irish priest?
I want to speak to the 1/8 blood inside you that belongs to me.
Swell.
Which one are you again? You're not Kevin, right?
I'm Albert, Kevin's brother. Kitty's youngest.
Right, Albert. Albert's the one in Chicago, right?
Yeah, Pop. I live in Chicago.
He's a faggot? Which one's the faggot, Albert, Mark?
Mark is my cousin, Julietta's side. He's a homosexual. Gay man, they call it.
That's not you.
Not me.
I can't think. Which one is Albert?
I am.
What?
I'm Albert.
I know that, boy, but which one is Albert? What's he do?
I'm still a student, actually.
What?
I'm in graduate school.
Graduate what now?
I said I'm in school.
What?
I'm a rocket scientist.
Oh. Okay. But do you know your world history?
I know a bit.
A bit? Well, I know all of it.
All of world history?
Yes. Now, you ever wonder why the German people still feel guilty while the Italians and the Japs don't pay it mind?
They don't?
The Germans, they harbor the shame in a way that Italy and Japan don't have to, because the Germans never truly paid the price. Italy paid theirs with muscle. They strung up Mussolini, killed him with their own hands, redeemed their people in the doing of it. The Japanese paid in blood, had the nukes and fallout fall on them, and when their children died and their cities were leveled, they paid their taxes to the gods they owed by the bombs that fell onto them.
I see.
If I was German, I swear to Christ I'd marry the first Jew who'd take me. Move to some other country. Make babies to dilute my blood so the shame they'd have to bear could be halved.
You got something you feel shame about, Pop?
I think I killed a man, maybe.
Oh, was that in,
You were about to say something.
No, never mind.
You wanted to say something smart.
I was. I stopped myself.
That's good because I'm earnest now.
I can see that.
I think I killed the man, maybe. The Depression. You don't know what that was. I was working at City Hall. My father had pull or something. Not that we had a pot to piss in, but when there's no money, power is the next best thing. And so I worked. Downtown by the water, City Hall. I was an errand boy. And I was in love with a girl. Couldn't have been more than 17. I can't remember now. But I remember her name. It was Evelyn Fitzwater. When I met her, she was fat around the edges, just the right little plumpness. But as the ravage of the times took their toll, she grew skinnier and bonier every time I looked upon her. It would be one thing if I stole from my family, but I stole for hers. One day, at the courthouse, I was to deliver a package from a state senator to a court clerk, transport an envelope filled with $42 of cash government money, more than the crown jewels in those days. And there were these colored boys who'd carry rags on the steps outside, trying to find a rich man to give a penny for a shoe shine. One of them was crazy as a devil. Mud Boy, we called him. because we didn't care what his real name was. Well, I took that $42 and I put it in a box. And I went to A.V. Fitzwater's and I buried the box in the ground. I punched myself in the eye as hard as I could and went stumbling back to the courthouse, telling the court clerk I'd been robbed. Old Mudboy had robbed me. He took the $42 from the envelope and pasted his blackness in a ring around my eye. And they went to Mudboy, who protested and pled, but never fought back. He died a day or two after. Not in the hospital, but in the streets from wounds I caused, but didn't inflict. I kept my job. I told Evie Fitzwater where to dig. And I tried and tried to stop loving her. So strong was the guilt over how I won her heart. But you say nothing?
I don't know what to say to that.
Please say something.
I'm trying to find a way to disbelieve you.
There's no one else on this green earth who knows that story. Just you and me and the soul of a black man I'm scared of meeting on the other side.
Why would you tell me this? You could have told this to anyone? Accidental that it was me?
Anyone. Blood, my blood. And I told it to you. You have children, Albert?
I do. Boys, 1 and 4. They're out on the patio.
What's that?
They're on the patio.
Maybe this means nothing to you, since it's only fractioned blood. Maybe you can't feel the shame of it. Maybe it's just an old white man's shame. But we all amass our own shame. If not mine, your own. And one day, your boys, they'll feel it too.
No, I don't have that kind of shame to give them.
You will.
I'm sorry, Pop. I don't know if I accept that.
You will. I see the signs from the bathroom. Happy birthday, it says, in rainbow colors. But 100 years to me is not just joy and festivities. It's pain and sorrow, too. That's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you. Half of this day must need be spent in sadness.
I'll share it with you.
So, let's just sit then. And together, let's be sad a minute.
Till your pants come.
That'll do.
You just heard Happy Birthday, Mr. Abernathy by Lloyd Suh. It featured Len Cariou as Mr. Abernathy and Ken Leung as Albert Chung. We have Lloyd Suh, the playwright of Happy Birthday, Mr. Abernathy, here with us. Welcome, Lloyd.
Thanks, Claudia.
Your play takes place in Missouri. Is that where you're from? What's your background?
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I was born just outside of Detroit, Michigan, but our family moved to the south suburbs of Indiana when I was very young.
And what's your ethnicity then?
Korean American.
You are Korean American, just like Albert.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And in your play, the newspaper article about Mr. Abernathy's 100th birthday states that 5 generations are living in one house. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much unheard of in 2013. Is that a good or bad thing in your mind?
I think of it as a kind of a beautiful image of multiple generations sharing a space.
Did you grow up that way?
I did not. My parents came over in 1972, and for the most part, we were the only immediate family really in the States.
Really the opposite of Albert.
That's true.
Albert asks his grandfather after Mr. Abernathy tells the story. He says, "Why did you tell me this?" In your estimation, why did he tell him that?
I think he wants to simply share it, this moment of great regret that he's been carrying with him. So not necessarily even looking for forgiveness for it, but looking for an opportunity to feel what it really is. It's just about acknowledgement of the sadness of it.
He says to his great-grandson, "I don't mind if you disbelieve these stories I've told you." So it's just the telling of them that matters.
I think that the telling of it is the biggest part. I've never been that interested in characters who always tell the truth or always tell exactly the truth. There's truth and non-truth in that statement. I think the truth of it is that confession is the most important part of that, but that he does hope that he can believe it and therefore share it with him.
Or maybe he's letting Albert off the hook and he's being kind if it's easier for Albert not to believe it.
Yeah, perhaps that's true too.
As a Korean-American playwright growing up in the Midwest, did you experience feeling in any way marginalized?
I think that growing up is a complicated process, and I think that, being a kid, you're bound to feel isolated no matter what. It's hard for me to compare it to anything because I only really grew up once. There are certainly times when I felt very isolated, and there are certainly times that I felt like I was isolated because of my ethnicity and because my ethnicity in relation to where I was growing up. Anybody growing up anywhere is going to have certain experiences that are less than ideal. Everybody's growing up is going to have feelings of, isolation and confusion and searching. And it's the search that really ultimately defines who you are.
And is there something about the short play that attracts you and that might continue to attract you?
Yeah, I love short plays. There's something very impulsive about it, or that can be impulsive about it, in the spirit of trying on different versions of yourself. Most of the great short plays are a single action. I think that they can be just as hard in terms of the prep to really think about writing it and preparation for writing a short play, because you still need to do all the the same amount of work on character and world and all that stuff, and theme and meaning and impact and all the things that you think about in a full-length play. But the fact that you can exercise it in a single action is really exciting. And in my early professional years as a playwright, writing a lot of short plays was something that was really helpful in terms of unearthing my own impulses to see what I might want to expand upon.
I guess one thing I might want to ask you is just, since this play is so much about race, how race has affected you as a writer, if it has at all.
Yeah, I think it has completely. I think it has on every level, in a way that's really unquantifiable. Because I think that anytime that anybody writes a story or writes anything, they're doing it through a lens. And while I think it's not always great to be too self-aware of what that lens is, there's an element of wanting to be at least aware that it exists. And certainly I know that my lens is, as a Korean American of my age who grew up in Indiana,
How old are you?
Right now I'm 37. I'll be 38 later this year. Yeah, and that's unavoidable. That's just the way it is as a writer. And I think that you can try to examine a wide range of topics, very different kinds of stories. But ultimately, I know that anytime I do that, it's through that lens.
Mr. Abernathy, obviously, when he was young, there were still ex-slaves walking around, and Irish people were really minimized. So he's seen a huge shift in terms of the race. Have you seen any in terms of your relatively young life, in terms of attitudes?
That's a really good question. Just in terms of the trajectory of my life personally, I know that my context has changed, so it's hard to really know what's behind the things that have happened or that I've observed in my direct personal sphere. But I think certainly just looking at it objectively from a cultural perspective and looking at the United States, there's definitely a demographic shift that has changed the way we talk about race. And there's definitely, I think, a great awareness in this country now of the demographic realities and how they're shifting and how they're going to shift, which is a big part of, I think, the impulse behind this play and behind even just looking into the character of William Abernathy and thinking about what it is to be a traditionalist, what it is to be a traditionalist who's used to life being a certain way, who's used to defining America on a particular rubric of terms, seeing themselves within an identity politic that is vanishing, and to know that it's vanishing.
Ironically, here he is surrounded by what he calls Orientals, and yet he's living in a very traditional setting in that it's mixed generationally.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to assign a metaphor to the play that doesn't necessarily exist, but I think of it as like, how did this happen? How did my family become ethnic? I can't imagine, say, like Mitt Romney post-election eve saying, how did my country get like this? And assessing the demographic realities of how the country voted in that election, of saying, wow, my country is different than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Mr. Abernathy himself was extremely ethnic as a young man.
Yeah, and that
goes round and round.
Totally.
We've been talking with Lloyd Suh, the playwright of Happy Birthday, Mr. Abernathy. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Claudia. This is great.
You've been listening to Playing on Air, great American short plays with great American actors. Original music by Tom Cochan. Recording and sound design by Suze Dyer of Phantom Audio. Visit us on Facebook or on the web at playingonair.org. For Playing on Air, I'm Claudia Catania.